CoCo Johnson, your Lady of Wellness. Join me as I address topics in all things wellness, from mental health, social disparities, and education, advocating for those who suffer in silence. Hi, I'm CoCo Johnson, your Lady of Wellness. Join me as I address topics in all things wellness, from mental health, social disparities, and education, advocating for those who suffer in silence. Brought to you today by Rosa Sharon All Naturals, changing lives one tablespoon at a time. Today, I'm excited to welcome my guest today, who is an herbalist and specializing in functional medicine. And I'm glad that he's here today to show you guys or tell you guys how that actually works and how you can use it in your everyday life. Welcome.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
No
Appreciate
problem. Thank you for being here. So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I am a functional medicine practitioner and a clinical herbalist, and I have a practice here in Indianapolis. See lots of different clients ranging from cancer to autoimmune disease, digestive issues, hormone imbalances, and I kind of try to help them navigate that scene that's kind of scary for most people.
Yes.
And use more alternative modalities to kind of help them. And a lot of the herbs I use, I go out and I forage. So I spend a lot of time traveling around the U.S. to collect mushrooms, plants, trees, whatever I'm kind of using with them, and then making the medicine for those folks. So it's kind of a nice marrying of, natural outdoors time with the science and the heaviness of sometimes that more clinical side of things.
Nice. So let's dive in. So how did you get into this field? What made you decide to follow this career path?
Yeah. So when I was younger, when I was still an undergrad at Indiana University, I was studying community health and didn't really feel like I was gaining a lot of knowledge as far as like actually how to help someone feel better. And unfortunately, around the same time, I had an aunt that faced a chronic disease, and it's where your muscle turns to bone. It's very rare. It's genetic. Only about 2,000 people in the whole world have it. And it's called fibrocans ossificans progressiva. And so she lived a long life for someone with that disease, but I always wondered, if we used osteopathic manipulations, or we talked about different herbs she could take, or she couldn't chew solid food, so they did a lot of more juices with her and water. And I always wondered, what if we did more of a nutrient-based, juice or smoothie with her, and what that might have done. And so after she ended up passing away my junior year in school, I realized I wanted to go much more into medicine. But I knew that, being raised more holistically, that I didn't want to be very much in the allopathic model. And I wanted to kind of help people navigate more natural remedies.
Nice. So, for me, I got into everything when I was suffering from something in silence. Someone, hit me in a car and things just went sideways, and the doctors couldn't figure out what to do with me. So they put me on a whole lot of medication that made me a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
And I actually took the initiative. Someone introduced me to products, and I took the initiative to research them. And not too many people do. Some people just, accept the consequence of the medicine or the side effects. And so what does that mean as far as, we're looking for now, and fast forward 2024, people are looking for other ways of bringing down those blood pressures, bringing down some of the chronic diseases and some of the pain.
Sure.
So can you explain further, the people that you work with, what are some of the hot topics as far as when people come to you and ask you for your help?
Yeah. It's kind of all over the place. And that's kind of, the story about my aunt there. She was someone that had a very complex chronic illness. And that's kind of the clientele that seems to kind of be attracted to me. And I like also helping is, when we have these scary diagnoses like the C word, cancer.
Yes.
Not that I'm a medical doctor and can cure that.
Right.
But I think we can navigate the scene with a lot more intentionality. And so, it's lots of things like those chronic illnesses, but blood pressure is a big part of that. There's a lot of underlying causes like high blood sugar, blood pressure, cardiovascular disease as an overall, diabetes, lots of different complications that underline a lot of these different diseases. And so, I think it's important not only to go into what your diet, your lifestyle, the water intake, how do you live your life emotionally and spiritually, to then influence some of those other major disease terms that we have.
Awesome. So you brought up something that really triggered my thought.
Mm-hmm.
You said how you live your life emotionally, how you live
Yeah.
your life. How does that play a part?
I think, yeah, I mean, most of the diseases we see, they have an emotional component to them. And I think if you're working with a practitioner who doesn't at least talk about that with you, they're missing part of the point. Look a lot of times at like breast cancer patients, and I mean, it's typically shown that a lot of times they give to others more than they give to themselves, and that's kind of like the paramount emotional sacrifice component to that. And if you look up something called German New Medicine, you can kind of study this. I mean, some doctors have started to use this more and more in their practices, and encouraging to see, but they've shown that certain instances, whether it pops up on the left or the right side, what kind of illness it is, it has a strong correlation to past traumas, dynamics with your family. So I think it's important to ask yourself, when did this start first happening for you? Was it the time that you moved away? Was it the time that your parents got divorced? Was it the time that maybe there was a sexual trauma? I think then also asking how things changed from there is a big part of the healing process.
And also you brought up blood pressure, and I'm learning more and more that so many things affect the blood pressure. It's not just stress per se.
Sure.
It's not always the salt. I have a friend that just told me that his blood pressure was risen because of his sinuses, which he plans on having surgery for.
Okay.
Which is, I had no clue. I was blown away. And the same thing with me, that I was placed on blood pressure medicine because of the muscle tension in my body, not because I had high sodium levels, and that sometimes get misconstrued because that's what the first thing people say, how much salt you're having, how much, and it's not always that.
Yeah.
So do you find that is to be something like, underlining where people need to really think about, what is actually making my blood pressure rise versus what is people been telling us?
Yeah. I'm going to come right back to that because I think it might be good to kind of, precede that with an example. And there's a doctor that I like to follow named Dr. Tom Cowan.
Nice. Okay.
And he often says that, if you go see your doctor and they look at a splinter that you have on your hand and say, oh, that's a lot of pus. Let me give you an antibiotic or a medication that reduces the amount of pus that's being produced. They've missed the point. That's not the issue. Your body's trying to expel the splinter naturally. Same thing. I mean, I see it also in the alternative realm. If you go see an herbalist, a naturopath, a DO, and they say, wow, you have a lot of mucus in your lungs, let me give you an anti-mucosal herb. They've also missed the point. The issue is not the mucus. Your body's smart. We have dumb medicine, but we have really smart bodies. And so it's trying to get it out. Now, with the incidence of high blood pressure, sometimes high blood pressure is actually not a bad thing. Some people actually have a higher blood pressure just naturally because of different genetics. Maybe they need that to actually more effectively utilize those resources in their body. And so it's important to take an individualistic approach. Now, with blood pressure, there is a lot of different causes that could be contributing to that. The thing about it is that a lot of times blood pressure goes up with things like stress.
Yes.
But it also goes up when we have a hard time moving blood through the body, right? When there's resistance. So that resistance can be caused by lots of different things. And the largest thing I often see is that when that dietary intake is more prone towards inflammatory foods, and especially specifically, inflammatory oils, trans fats, then we have issues. So I would say there's a lot of dynamics. I mean, it could be stress for someone. It could be the foods that they eat, but then also it could just be the general water composition in their body. The fact that we're told that blood, I question a lot of times what we're told in biology and medical text. Blood's about the same thickness as the vessels that move it around. So I find it hard to believe that the heart works in the exact way that we're told it does. And I think a lot has to do more with the water dynamics in the body than anything else. And so looking at even the quality of water that people are drinking can be a big thing of that.
So when you mention water, there's this theory of you're supposed to drink gallons of it a day, and then there's these other theories of you drink half your body weight. So what do you naturally tell people you work with? Is that one or the other, or is it something different?
Yeah, so kind of the premise underlying most things that I suggest people is quality. You know, if they go get food that's organic from the store, that's great. You know, they avoid a lot of pesticides and herbicides. But if you go find a local farmer who grows things organically and biodynamically, there's nothing tampered with it at all, as long as they're following good procedures.
Yes.
Like we often see with Weston A. Price, for example. So people want to source in the highest quality they can. The same goes for water. You know, the ideal would be that we have a spring in our backyard that naturally is like around 4 degrees Celsius. It's naturally vortexed by going through the ground and has minerals from the decomposition. But I don't know too many people who have springs in their backyard, unfortunately.
Right.
So often I tell people get the least contaminated water you can. So that might be like reverse osmosis or distilled water. And then either vortex it, add minerals back in, or find some way to structure it. I mean, we have doctors like Dr. Gerald Pollack, who is finding that there's like a fourth phase of water, things that we didn't know inherently about water. Dr. Emoto has shown that water can store memories, emotions, different crystalline objects. So it actually has the same influence on our structure, that it helps with the integrity of the cytoplasm of our cells. And so everyone's going to need a different amount. If they're very sick, they might need more water. Sometimes different diseases require less water, you know? So I would say, first and foremost, get quality structured water into you. And then just generally, I usually say 4 cups per 50 pounds of body weight. But I would say don't get hung up on the quantity all the time. As long as you're having very regular bowel movements and you're getting structured water in you, that's the most important thing.
So the craziest, as of, I would say, last 3-4 years, is alkaline water. So, and I've heard the good, I've heard the bad, I've heard if you have too much, you can take some things away from your body. And a lot of people are becoming confused on what should they actually take. We know that the faucet water is not necessarily the way to go. But we buy bottled water. It says purified. What does that mean? You know, all the different terms. But the whole craze is around the alkaline water. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So alkaline water, it's this idea that pH is really important. The thing about it is that every organ in the body has a different pH. If the body allowed an organ to go too far out of alignment with that pH, you would die. It's not going to let that happen. So in my opinion, you know, every practitioner is allowed to how they want to approach things. But in my opinion, if you take alkaline water that then waters down like stomach acid, for example, then your body's going to produce more stomach acid to counterbalance that, because it's not going to allow that pH to change. I also don't know the quality of how clean that water is, because I think that's pH is not, you know, is there fluoride or pesticide runoff or birth control in the water, for example. So I would say look for that water that's the lowest contaminant. Maybe it's a Berkey filter at your house. Maybe it's the RO distilled that I mentioned earlier. And then kind of go from there. I tend not to deal in like alkaline diets. I think the reason that those work is usually people go from a standard American diet to then eating lots of fruits and vegetables, and no matter what, that's going to be beneficial.
So you mentioned something else earlier, the gut.
Sure.
So the gut controls a lot.
Yes.
And it's important for people to understand their digestion system and how the body flows, because we all need to have bowel movements. We get that. But at the same time, how could you explain just a little bit how, you know, the gut affects a lot of different things in our body?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we've started hearing more about like the gut-brain connection, for example, more and more, and that's becoming, even to mainstream allopathic practitioners, something that's on their radar. There was a study done, and they examined the bacterial composition of 3 different groups. So they looked at one group that had just a standard American diet, and they found an overabundance of pathogenic bacteria. They looked at another group that followed an organic diet, and they found that those people had a better distribution overall of more commensal or beneficial bacteria. And then they looked at a third group, a group that ate pretty clean, but they include wild foods, things like our stinging nettle, burdock root, different medicinal mushrooms. And they found that that group actually started to get bacterial strains we thought were depleted and had gone extinct, such as like oxalobacter, which is a genus that's important for making sure we don't get crystalline diseases like gout or different deposits of mineral in the body. And so those people were gaining that bacterial strain that's protective. And so it's showing that our gut plays a huge role in that. I mean, even in the context of my practice, it's the women who have a better colonic bacteria that get a better benefit from example, like if I gave them black cohosh for their hormones. And so it's not really necessarily always everyone's going to react the same. You know, it has to do a lot of times with, how healthy is just their body, and we are mostly the bacteria that's found in our gut. I think it's also worth mentioning that we have children that are born in hospitals that are C-sections, for example.
Yes.
And oftentimes they look at these children, and if they're C-section and don't go through the vaginal canal and get swabbed through those beneficial bacteria, that then they begin to take on the pathogenic bacteria that's found in the hospital, such as like E. coli. And so if you think about the first inoculation there, that can cause up poor health from that point on.
Yes. Okay, yeah. I didn't know that. So I had a C-section baby myself and had no idea. Young, didn't understand all of that, but that's good to know.
Yeah.
You brought up something what I really want to come here and talk about.
Sure.
But we're going to take a short break. We're going to talk about mushrooms when we come back. I would like to bring up our sponsors. Thank you, Rosa Sharon. Rosa Sharon is an all-natural sea moss and functional mushroom-based product, and we'd like to thank them for sponsorship. Changing lives one tablespoon at a time. So, mushrooms. So, you mentioned foraging. So, tell the audience what foraging is. I know what it is, but tell them so they'll know.
Yeah, so foraging is the ethical gathering of plant matter for the hopes of using it either medicinally or also for edible purposes. I mean, you can also use it for a lot of things like decorations.
Yes.
People make kind of interesting arts and crafts, but that's the big thing. It's an ethical gathering of plant matter.
Okay. So you're basically going to hunt for mushrooms?
Yeah, so it kind of just depends what my clients need, or, you know, I make different tinctures and herbal tea blends and sell them to health food stores in the area. And so, it kind of just depends what I need for folks, but one of those big things that I go out and gather pretty regularly are medicinal mushrooms.
So can you tell people what a tincture is?
Sure. So a tincture is usually based on either alcohol, water, or glycerin, and different bases, they pull out different things. Like alcohol pulls out certain constituents. It's not the greatest for vitamins and minerals. In that case, water might be a little bit better. So a tincture is usually an alcohol, water, or glycerin preparation. The advantage of that is that it's usually more shelf stable. So that might be what you see when you go to a health food store on the shelf in those little glass amber bottles.
Yes.
And they're nice because they're kind of quicker absorption run of the tongue, and people sometimes can dose them a little bit more individualistically. They can take more or less rather than having to swallow a capsule, for example, and wait for their digestive system to work.
Nice. So I use tinctures a lot.
Good.
And I make my own as well. But I want to talk about, certain mushrooms. Is there any specific mushroom that you go after more than the other? And then can you describe the benefits of why? Yeah, I go after quite a few different ones. So some of the major ones that I offer to clients that I see are chaga. I also use lion's mane, maitake, turkey tail. But I also use some of the more unknown ones, like we have around here artist conch, or Ganoderma sessile. Some of these, we hear reishi, that's a Ganoderma genus mushroom. Some of these lesser known species in that genus that are also local to here. I tend to use a lot of lion's mane in my practice, but also a lot of turkey tail, and that's one that I encourage people to form a relationship with because turkey tail is in most everyone's backyard or forest close to them. And you can find it most all year round, and that's kind of the great thing. There's only a couple lookalikes, so it's pretty safe to identify. And just because of that accessibility, I tend to encourage people, go start with turkey tail and go from there. So what does turkey tail do, or what can it do? Sure. So I'd say, generally speaking, medicinal mushrooms, like the ones I mentioned, they help as an immune tonic.
So if the immune system's overreactive, it can help turn it down. If it's underactive, it can help bolster a better immune response. Turkey tail specifically, they've started to isolate constituents like PSP and PSK, and they've derived certain cancer drugs like Crestin, for example, from it. And they're finding that it's largely this immunological component that helps with conditions like breast cancer, potentially. And if you look at Paul Stamets, for example, that's what the mushroom is that he used with his mother when she was facing cancer. And so I'm not saying mushrooms are a cure for cancer by any means, but I'm saying that mushrooms are an important thing to consider in the context of immune dysregulation. And they can be used lots of different ways, capsules, powders, tinctures. I tend to encourage folks to work with someone that's a local practitioner who can tell you what's the best form for maybe what's going on.
So now the craze is, let's ditch the coffee and the caffeine and let's go to mushroom teas and coffees. Is there any, I don't know, basically, do you recommend any one over the other, or is that just to commercialize it, or is that really something that people actually do and they get the benefits? Like, I understand that you get the benefits from the mushroom, period, but as far as boosting that energy, mood stabilizer, that kind of deal.
Yeah, I would look for, if you're interested in using mushroom coffee, which has definitely become a lot more popular as of late, look for someone that maybe makes one locally, maybe who forages, because there's a great book called The Business of Botanicals if people are interested in reading more about this, that a lot of our mainstream herb companies, we think that drug companies are bad, and herb companies and supplement companies can be just as bad. And a lot of times, a lot of them are owned by companies like Clorox, for example, or Bayer. And so it's important to find local partnerships and source from them. And so I'd say, first, try to find someone local. The second is that why does it maybe help? And largely, I would say caffeine is not the greatest thing for us. It is a plant toxin. It's the most successful plant toxin. We tend to like it quite a bit, right?
Addictive.
But the thing is that, like, what coffee actually does to you is that it actually makes you perceive things a little bit different. So aggravation is a common side effect from being over-caffeinated, right?
Yes.
It's because you perceive the world is not moving at the speed at which your mind is actually moving. And so I would say anything that helps you regulate your own hormones, and I say that in the context that caffeine has a big effect on adrenaline and other different hormones in the body, a lot of the ones that have to do with our adrenal glands, for example, that anything that helps restore the natural rhythm of that can be helpful. And even caffeine has an effect on melatonin, which we know is really important for our immune system, but also sleep. So I think it's a great thing to consider for folks who are looking to cut down their caffeine intake. But if someone's like, I have cancer or autoimmune disease or a major immune illness, does drinking mushroom coffee every day help that? I don't think so. I think you need to do a little bit more of a well-structured plan to that, get something that's individual for you, and maybe take higher doses of a mushroom to actually get significant benefit.
So I get this question all the time. So World of Sharon specializes in chaga and lion's mane. And chaga, a lot of people are not too certain about chaga, don't understand the effects and all of that. Could you explain what chaga is?
Sure. It's an interesting mushroom. So it's a sclerotium, and it grows mostly on birch trees.
Yes.
So it's important to source from wild collected sources that are doing it ethically, because chaga is actually now endangered because of over-harvesting practices. So I would source mostly from someone who guarantees that they forage it in an ethical manner. It has interesting constituents. It's got melanin on the outside. It's one of the highest antioxidant sources as well. And it actually pulls betulinic acid from birch trees, which we've looked at betulinic acid, and it's largely impactful for our perception of pain and our immune response. So chaga is one that I kind of reserve for folks who have gone through cancer or are going through cancer and need a little bit of immune support. I think the real specifics of chaga have to do that it's really great for melanomas or skin cancers. So I tend to use it for folks who have skin cancer, who need an antioxidant source, immune support, and maybe they have a history of using coffee, and that chaga is a good kind of transition because it's kind of bitter, but it's enjoyable still in flavor, right?
Yes.
It's also one that comes out pretty well constituent-wise, either as a dual extract, water and alcohol in a tincture, or as a tea. We think of decoction, that slow simmer over 30 minutes or so, and then straining it.
Nice. And so the vegans are all about the lion's mane. And
Yeah.
and so they like the idea that you can fry it, you can do some things. Could you explain what lion's mane is and what the benefits are?
Lion's mane, yeah. So it's a Herbaceum genus mushroom, and there's 3 mushrooms in that genus. All 3 are edible. So it's gotten a lot of popularity because it does taste like kind of like shellfish, or different seafoods. Yeah, when you cook them, we look at the properties in it. It's known to help with something called nerve growth factor. So if people have conditions such as neuropathy, poor mental recall or cognition, it can be really helpful. The downside is, though, that lion's mane, those constituents that help that are triterpenes, and that comes from alcohol extracts. Now, the thing is that the powder or eating it is a little bit better for our gut. I talked about the bacterial composition, but then also it has a large impact on something called secretory IgA, so helping to actually improve the immune system in our body related to the gut. So I would say it's a mushroom to consider in lots of different contexts, but it changes depending on the form that it's administered.
Now, I know a few people that are suffering from, what is called PCOC.
Oh, PCOS?
OS, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so is there a particular mushroom that, that you would suggest or that you would think people would look? Because it's becoming more and more of a thing now. And more people that are in natural living and alternatives are turning towards to understand women in particular.
Sure.
The body, because it's causing people to have abnormal periods or not being able to bear children and some other things. So do you work with anyone that is suffering, and what do you recommend them doing anything, as far as if they want to consider a mushroom?
Sure. So PCOS is diagnosed in different ways.
Yes.
Oftentimes people suffering from that do see things like they see altered menstrual cycles. Oftentimes we also see elevations in certain hormones like testosterone, for example. Some of those women also suffer from hair growth.
Yes.
And so obviously what's underlying it is there's a hormonal change. Oftentimes too with that, it's largely dietary based. We see elevated blood sugar a lot of times. Mushrooms could be helpful in that context, but that's a complex diagnosis.
Yes, it is.
And so I would say, first and foremost, with something like that, avoid artificial hormones. That means getting a diet that's free of antibiotics, hormones from meat. Get good grass-fed, local, antibiotic and hormone-free sources of that. Get good organic food from a local farmer. Avoid water that has things like birth control in it from tap water. And then I'd encourage people to do some hormone testing. There's a great hormone test called the Dutch hormone test that I run for clients. Get an idea of where your hormones are at, because oftentimes providers will just prescribe one hormone, and then women get more into certain issues because we have a rhythm to our body.
Yes.
If we even raise one over the other, they're not working in tandem. We see that with estrogen and progesterone a lot. I'd also encourage women with that, start by tracking your cycle. That's one of the most important things that you can do.
Yes.
Is start by doing that. And then find someone around here that will work with you and treat you as an individual that has a unique health history.
Yes. Awesome. This has been great. So we have to wrap up a little bit right now, but I want you to give everybody your contact information. How can they reach out to you? I know you teach classes. Can you give us some details on that?
Sure, yeah. So folks are welcome to check out my website. It's Heartwood Herbals. It's spelled HARTWOOD, Heartwood Herbals. Same thing on Instagram. If folks are interested in the podcast we run at Georgetown Market, it's called the Awaken Indie Podcast. They can go there as well to get more natural-minded products. If people are interested in private consultations, plant walks, lab work testing. I do a lot with like mistletoe therapy and cancer. They can reach out and email me. It's
Awesome.
heartwoodherbals@gmail.com. And then, yeah, they can come to the free monthly classes or sign up for some of the other classes we offer in the area.
Awesome. This has been great. So we've learned a lot, and I could have went on and on because this is all things that I am just all for. But at the same time, we want to thank Aron for coming on today, and we were excited to have him. We learned a lot, we gained a lot, and we understand a little bit more, which is awesome. So thank you for tuning in to the CoCo Johnson Show.